Chapter 5. Isolated and Modernized Eskimos. During the rise and fall of various historic and prehistoric cultures, many of which have left their monuments and arts, the Eskimo culture has stood the test of time, offering a robust example of Stone Age people still living today. While civilizations like the Maya have disappeared, leaving behind their monuments, and Native American cultures are rapidly changing or disappearing, the Eskimo people have remained true to their ancestral heritage, demonstrating nature's ability to create a race capable of enduring the harsh Arctic climate for thousands of years. Similar to Native Americans, the Eskimos thrived as long as they were not affected by modern civilization. However, like all primitive peoples, they suffer and decline when modern influences reach them. In their primitive state, the Eskimos have exhibited physical excellence and dental perfection rarely surpassed by any other race, past or present. We are particularly interested in understanding the secret of their remarkable health, as their isolated lifestyle minimizes the external factors that might influence their physical condition. While our primary focus is on studying the dental and facial characteristics of the Eskimos and how modern civilization affects them, we are also deeply interested in their nutritional formula. We hope to learn from their diet secrets that can not only help modern, so-called civilized races, but also contribute to their preservation. It is unfortunate that the arrival of Europeans has rapidly reduced the numbers and physical excellence of both Eskimos and Native Americans due to diseases introduced by the white man. Few problems are as pressing and challenging as finding ways to prevent the extinction of the primitive peoples of the Americas. Many reports have been made regarding the dental condition of Eskimos, mostly from groups studied along trade routes, which do not represent the most primitive groups. These most primitive groups can only be found in regions far from modern civilization. Therefore, it was desirable to locate and study Eskimos in isolated districts. While dog teams can be used for winter travel, they are not available for summer travel. Thanks to the assistance of Dr. Alexis Herdliska, who has conducted anthropological studies of Eskimos in many districts of Alaska, I learned that the most primitive groups are located south of the Yukon in the area between it and Bristol Bay, including the delta and the mouth of the Kuskokwim River. A government station has been set up on the Kuskokwim River, where a government boat delivers supplies. The boat carries officials, but not passengers. This contact with civilization has made modern foods available to a limited district, mainly at the point where the boat lands, Bethel. Some of these supplies are transported by a sternwheel riverboat to settlements farther up the river. However, many Eskimos live between the mouth of the Kuskokwim and the mouth of the Yukon River, covering several hundred miles, and have little or no access to these foods. Our field study program among the Eskimos in 1933 required traveling long distances to districts with virtually no other means of transportation than modern airplanes. Mrs. Price accompanied me and assisted with the records. Our itinerary included steamship service to Seward in western Alaska and then by railway to Anchorage, where we chartered an airplane to various districts in western and central Alaska. This plane carried our field equipment and flew to the selected points. The Great Alaska Mountain Range, culminating in the magnificent Mt. McKinley, stretches across Alaska from the Aleutian Peninsula in the southwest deep into the heart of this vast territory. The highest mountain in the United States proper is Mt. Whitney at 14,502 feet. And the highest mountain in Canada is Mt. Logan at 19,539 feet. Alaska, however, boasts many mountains higher than any of these, with many of them in this range. Mt. McKinley itself stands at 20,300 feet. We had to cross this magnificent range to reach the area where we conducted our investigations. The special airplane we chose was equipped with radio for both sending and receiving and was in contact at all times with the Signal Service Corps and the company's headquarters and branches. Due to clouds in the chosen pass, the pilot had to divert 150 miles off course to find a clear route. Beyond these mountains were vast areas of uninhabited wilderness with no signs of human life, though moose were frequently seen. Our first objective was to locate a band of Indians reported to live on Stony River, described as very primitive. Our pilot, knowledgeable about the region, mentioned it was his first time landing in this district. All the people were busy catching and storing the running salmon. After drying the fish, they smoke them for a few hours and then store them for winter use. These resourceful people have physical features quite different from the Indians of central, southern, and eastern Alaska. Among the 12 individuals studied here, 10 had lived entirely on native foods, or almost entirely. In their 288 teeth, only one tooth had ever been attacked by tooth decay, which is 0.3%. 2 individuals had come from the Kuskokwim River, of which Stony River is a branch. There, they had received a considerable amount of store grub shipped from Bethel. 27% of the teeth of these 2 individuals had been attacked by dental caries. We then traveled to Sleepmute on the Kuskokwim River, where we found 3 individuals who had lived entirely on native foods, and none of them had ever had a tooth attacked by tooth decay. 7 others had lived partly on native foods and partly on store grub, and they had dental caries in 12.2% of their teeth. At Crooked Creek, the next settlement, we examined 8 individuals, and of their 216 teeth, 41, or 18.9%, had caries. All but one of these were living in considerable part on store grub, and this individual had no dental caries. At Nepamut, 16% of the teeth had been attacked by dental caries, but no individuals studied there were living entirely on native foods. Bethel, the largest settlement on the Kuskokwim, besides white residents, has many visiting Eskimos from the nearby tundra country surrounding it. 88 individuals, mostly Eskimos and mixed bloods, were studied here. Of their 2,490 teeth, 11.6%, or 281 teeth, had been attacked by tooth decay. Among these 88 individuals, 27 with 796 teeth had lived almost exclusively on natural foods, and in this group, only 1 tooth was found with dental caries. Or 0.1%. 40 individuals were living almost exclusively on modern foods shipped in by the government supply boat. Of their 1,094 teeth, 252, or 21.1%, had been attacked by tooth decay. 21 individuals were living partly on native foods and partly on store grub, and of their 600 teeth, 38, or 6.3%, had been attacked by tooth decay. At Kakamut, on the Bering Sea at the mouth of the Kuskokwim River, we studied a large group of very primitive Eskimos. They had come from the vicinity of Nelson Island, a district with exceedingly little contact with modern civilization. In this group, 28 individuals with 820 teeth showed only 1 tooth, or 0.1%, that had ever been attacked by dental caries. Bethel Island, located in the Kuskokwim River, is visited in the summer by Eskimos from the tundra country to lay in their store of fish for winter use. Of 15 individuals here, 13, with 410 teeth, had lived exclusively on native foods, and not a single tooth had been attacked by dental caries. 2 had come from Bethel, and of their 60 teeth, 21 or 35% had been attacked by tooth decay. In the various groups in the lower Kuskokwim, 72 individuals who were living exclusively on native foods had in their 2,138 teeth only 2 teeth, or 0.09%, that had ever been attacked by tooth decay. In this district, 81 individuals were studied who had been living in part or in considerable part on modern foods, and of their 2,254 teeth, 394 or 13% had been attacked by dental caries. This represents an increase in dental caries of 144 times. It then became desirable to study a district that had been in contact with the foods of modern commerce for many years, and for this, Holy Cross was selected. This community is located on the Yukon River above the Arctic Circle and has been in contact with the summer commerce of the Yukon for several decades. It has one of the oldest and best organized Catholic missions in Alaska. The individuals studied were all in the school connected with the mission. The students had come from as far north as Point Barrow on the Arctic Ocean and west to the Bering Strait. All but one had been in contact with and had used modern foods before coming to the mission and were using them while there. This one individual had lived exclusively on native foods before coming to the mission, and he had no carious teeth. And 8 individuals with 224 teeth, who had lived very largely on modern foods, 42 teeth, or 18.7%, had been attacked by tooth decay. 4 individuals had lived partly on native foods and partly on modern foods, and of their 112 teeth, 4, or 3.5%, had been attacked by tooth decay. It is interesting that while the Eskimos and Indians have lived in close proximity, they have not intermarried. The Eskimos occupy the lower section of the Yukon and Kuskokwim rivers and the Bering Sea frontier, while the Indians have occupied the upper waterways of both these rivers. The next place selected for study was McGrath, on the upper Kuskokwim, not far from the McKinley Mountain Range. It is the upper terminus of navigation on the Kuskokwim River for sternwheel riverboats and is the division point on the cross-Alaska airplane routes from Anchorage or Fairbanks to Nome and other western points. Its population consists of several white prospectors and miners who have remained in the country following the gold rush. Some of them have married Indian and Eskimo women. Of 21 individuals, only one had lived almost exclusively on native foods, and she had no dental caries. 20 had lived chiefly on imported foods, and of their 527 teeth, 175, or 33.2%, had been attacked by tooth decay. Among the residents of McGrath, there is a remarkable family. The father is an American mining engineer who has spent much of his life in that country. His wife is a charming Eskimo woman of splendid intelligence and fine personality. She originally came from the lower Kuskokwim and was of primitive Eskimo stock. While mining interests had provided food supplies for the family shipped from the United States, she followed her early training and insisted on catching and storing salmon in season as an important part of her own diet. The salmon were dried and smoked, as was the custom of her people. She is the mother of at least 20 children, as she could give the names of that many. Only 11 were living, however, several having died from tuberculosis. Despite her many burdens, not a single tooth had ever been attacked by tooth decay. One lower anterior tooth had been broken. A picture of this woman is shown in Figure 9. There has been extensive wear of the teeth, which is characteristic of many Eskimos, a topic we will discuss shortly. It's interesting to note the splendid symmetry of her dental arches. Her children, husband, and son-in-law had mostly eaten modern foods, and in these 8 individuals with 212 teeth, 87, or 41%, had been affected by tooth decay. Her oldest living daughter is 22 years old. She has narrowing of the upper arch and extensive tooth decay. Another daughter, 16, is a beautiful girl except for her narrow dental arches. According to our pilot, She became deeply interested in aircraft engines as they stopped at this point for servicing and fuel. She inherited some of the genius of her father, who was a mining engineer. 12 of her teeth had been affected by dental caries. To understand the magnificent dental development of the more primitive Eskimos, we shouldn't just focus on their lack of dental caries. The size and strength of the mandible, the breadth of the face, and the strength of the muscles used for chewing all reach an excellence that is rarely seen in other races. This is well illustrated in Figure 9. I was told that an average adult Eskimo man can carry 100 pounds in each hand and 100 pounds in his teeth with ease for a considerable distance. This illustrates the physical development of other parts of the body as well as the jaws, and suggests that the exercising of the jaws is not the sole reason for their very fine teeth, since the superb development of the musculature includes all parts of the body. It has also been suggested that chewing tough foods, which builds teeth of exceptionally fine quality, has been an important factor in establishing immunity to caries. As will be shown shortly, the teeth of these individuals with their excellent physical development and fine tooth structure develop caries when they depart from their native foods and adopt our modern foods. A lot has been reported in the literature about the excessive wear of Eskimos' teeth, which in women has been attributed to chewing leather during the tanning process. Many of the teeth studied showed signs of excessive wear, involving the crowns to a depth that in many people would have exposed the pulps, but in no case was there an open pulp chamber. They were always filled with secondary dentin. This is important because our current knowledge suggests that with the chemical characteristics of their food, we might expect that secondary dentin would readily form within the pulp chambers, through a process similar to what occurs in many individuals under a diet rich in minerals and activator-providing foods. One old Eskimo had a scar on his lower lip from perforations for carrying a decoration, a practice of his tribe. I have found this marking in primitive tribes in several parts of the world. The main outer garment worn by the more primitive Eskimo groups is a parka with a hood pulled over the head and closed around the neck with a drawstring, while another drawstring controls the size of the face opening in the hood when it is up. In summer, this is made of cloth or fur without the fur. A typical example is shown in Figure 9. It is again noted that the teeth are excessively worn. Because of the cold winds from the Bering Sea, even in summer, many women wear furs. A typical mother and child dressed in their warm clothing are shown in Figure 10. Eskimo women are both artistic and skilled in needlework. They use fur of different colors to decorate their garments. These women make artistic decorations by carving ivory from walrus teeth and from the buried tusks of the woolly mammoth that roamed the tundra tens of thousands of years ago. The ear decoration of this Eskimo woman is a typical design. This mother's teeth are literally 2 rows of pearls. It is important to note the width of the arches. One is continually impressed with the magnificent health of the children, as illustrated in Figure 10. In all our interactions with them, we never heard an Eskimo child crying except when hungry or frightened by the presence of strangers. The women are characterized by the abundance of breast milk, which almost always develops normally and is sustained without difficulty for a year. The mothers were completely free of dental caries, and I was told that Eskimo children have no difficulties when cutting their teeth. The excellence of the Eskimo dentition has also been a characteristic of the skulls excavated in various parts of Alaska. One might expect that such wonderfully formed teeth would maintain such high immunity to dental caries that their proud owners would never suffer from tooth decay. Unfortunately, this is not the case, which is of great significance in evaluating our modern theories about the causes of dental caries. When these adult Eskimos exchange their foods for our modern foods, as we will discuss in Chapter 15, They often experience extensive tooth decay and suffer greatly. This is clearly illustrated in Figure 11, where the teeth of these Eskimos have been seriously damaged by tooth decay. They had been living on modern foods and were typical of many people in contact with the Bering seaports. Their plight often becomes tragic because there are no dentists in these areas. A typical effect of modernization on a growing girl is shown in a case where the central incisors and 16 other teeth were affected by dental caries. 64% of her teeth had tooth decay. There are no dentists in western Alaska, north or west of Anchorage, which is near the southern coast, except in Fairbanks, which, like Anchorage, is many hundreds of miles from these Eskimos. It would take them months to make the journey in winter by dog team, and it would be practically impossible to travel there in the summer by any means except by plane, which these people clearly cannot afford. Their predicament is therefore most tragic when they suddenly become victims of diseases that require hospitalization or skilled medical or dental care. One mining engineer in the interior told me that he had spent $2,000 to have a dentist flown in to provide dental care. Upon examining his mouth, I found that 29 of his 32 teeth had been affected by dental caries. One important aspect of modern degeneration, namely, changes in facial and dental arch form and other physical characteristics, is of interest. It is of great significance that Eskimos living in isolated areas and on native foods have uniformly broad dental arches and typical Eskimo facial patterns. Even the first generation that moves away from this diet and adopts a modern diet shows a large number of individuals with marked changes in facial and dental arch form. In Figure 12, 4 Eskimo girls from the first generation following the adoption of modernized foods by their parents can be seen. All of them have deformed dental arches. It is important to note the inward settling pattern of the lateral incisors and the outward crowding of the cuspids. This facial pattern is currently attributed to a mix of racial bloodlines. These girls are pure-blooded Eskimos whose parents had normally formed dental arches. We are particularly interested in the foods used by these primitive Eskimos. They almost always live in homes on or near deep water. Their skill in handling their kayaks is remarkable. During the salmon running season, they store large quantities of dried salmon. They spear many of these fish from their kayaks. Even young boys are very skilled. They land salmon so large that they can hardly lift them. They are experts at spearing seals from these light crafts. Seal oil provides a very important part of their nutrition. Each piece of fish is dipped in seal oil as it is broken off. I obtained some seal oil from them and brought it to my laboratory for analysis of its vitamin content. It turned out to be one of the richest foods in vitamin A that I have found. The fish are hung on racks in the wind to dry. Fish eggs are also spread out to dry, as shown in Figure 13. These foods form a very important part of the nutrition of small children after they are weaned. Naturally, the drifting sands of the bleak Bering Straits lodge upon and cling to the moist surfaces of the fish that are hung up to dry. This is the main reason for the excessive wear on the teeth of the Eskimos, both men and women. The diet of these Eskimos in their natural state includes caribou, ground nuts gathered by mice and stored in caches, kelp gathered in season and stored for winter use, berries including cranberries preserved by freezing, flower blossoms preserved in seal oil, sorrel grass preserved in seal oil, and large quantities of frozen fish. Another important dietary factor is the organs of large sea animals, including certain layers of the skin of one of the species of whale, which have been found to be very high in vitamin C. Since the contact with our modern civilization, the Eskimo population of Alaska has been rapidly declining. One authority has quoted a 50% reduction in population over 75 years. An important observation was made by Dr. V. E. Levine and Professor C. W. Bauer from Creighton University, Nebraska, who reported on October 26, 1934, from Cordova, Alaska. Due to susceptibility to tuberculosis and other diseases, the average lifespan of the Alaskan Eskimo is only 20 years, and their race is doomed to extinction within a few generations unless modern medical science comes to their aid. Unless there is a radical change in the interference with the native supply of game and seafoods, the Eskimo population appears destined for rapid decline and early extinction. Their traditional fish-based diet has been significantly reduced by the encroachment of modern canneries on their salmon streams. It's interesting to note in connection with the Alaskan Eskimos, two white boys, who were sons of a mining engineer. They were born and raised in a mining camp in Alaska, where their diet consisted almost entirely of shipped-in food. I traveled with their mother, who was bringing them to the United States for nose operations because they were mouth breathers. It's important to observe the marked underdevelopment of both the middle third and lower third of the face of the boy shown in Figure 14. The family's nutrition during their development and growth was largely provided in packaged form shipped from the United States. Their disfigurement is typical of what many develop in our highly modernized communities and is similar, in general, to the deformities that develop in primitive races after they adopt modernized nutrition. Despite living in one of the harshest parts of the world with 9 or 10 months of winter and only 2 or 3 months of summer, and despite the absence of plant foods, dairy products, and eggs for long periods, the Eskimos were able to meet all their mineral and vitamin requirements from seafoods, stored greens, berries, and plants from the sea.